Hey, everybody. Welcome back. I'm Susan Linder, your host of Innovation Storytellers, where I invite the greatest innovators and the greatest storytellers to come in and talk about how to tell the best story around your breakthrough idea. I'm so excited today to have Neal Foard joining me. I'm an admitted social media fan of Neal's when I began seeing his posts appear online maybe about 3 years ago. And I was so impressed with both the graphic design and the honorifics he gives to the words used in telling great stories. But as I dug into Neal's background and I began to find not only is he a great verbal storyteller, but he is a fantastic ad man and also experiential marketer. And I wanted him to come on today to talk about not just his experience with amazing storytelling. He's also a keynote speaker, and I'll share a little bit more about his bio. But I wanted you, listener, to begin thinking about how you're telling your stories and all the different ways that you're telling your stories. It's not just at your town hall or maybe a presentation of your cool new innovation, but rather all the different ways that your stories can be sculpted and shaped to be shared with audiences outside the lab, outside of your office, and maybe even in bigger places like when you're at a trade show. Or maybe your idea has become so successful that it merits its own advertising campaign. So, Neal Foard is a master storyteller who spent decades creating award-winning ad campaigns for brands like Budweiser, Lexus, and Sony. As the worldwide director of creative learning for Saatchi and Saatchi, Neal trained professionals to sell their work more effectively. Today, Neal is known to millions for his viral videos celebrating everyday human kindness. He consults with Fortune 500 companies, universities, and governments, and is a sought-after speaker with multiple appearances on the TEDx stage. Neal, thank you so much for joining me today and this wonderful community of innovation leaders around the world.
Thank you, Susan, for having me on. It's kind of thrilling to be able to reach out and touch your audience.
So let's get started from the beginning. How did you wind up becoming a storyteller? Because none of us majored in storytelling in college. How did you get there?
Yeah, I was in advertising. I was a copywriter. I discovered rapidly that your deficiencies wind up helping you develop other strengths. For example, when they say, if you lose your eyesight, you develop unbelievable hearing and so forth. Well, in my case, I was in a highly competitive creative environment where you were competing with other creative people in order to get your ideas sold and for you to advance in your career. And I discovered pretty early that I was not the most talented person in my department. And I understood quickly I probably never would be. So what I also discovered at the same time is clients often don't know a good idea when they hear it. And if we all did, we would be all running movie studios because we would be able to take a script, read it on the page, and know whether or not it would be a hit. But that's not how we are. We need things explained to us. And so in the absence of talent, I said, well, I'm going to make sure that my idea gets the best possible reception. Myself and my partner, we became very good at presenting our own ideas. We would never just start to describe it. We would set the stage. And if you've ever seen the series Mad Men, Don Draper's great strength was not just the idea, but the ability to explain the idea with a certain amount of magic. If you've ever heard the story of Scheherazade and the 1001 Arabian Nights,
Sure.
the ability to spin a yarn was what ultimately saved her life night after night. And it's a good analog for what we used to do, which is if we can just sell it based on the magic of our presentation, we can live to fight another day. Now, from that, we learned another one of the great truisms of advertising, which is life gets a lot easier when people like you. And so what they should always do is look forward to hearing from you. It's not enough that they listen carefully to your idea. It's that they listen with attention and affection. They want to buy it. They're hoping it's going to be good. And along that score, we would make sure, as a rule, that our meeting was the best part of their day. We were going to do our level best to make sure that they enjoyed themselves, they learned something, even if they said no to the idea, even if they turned it down. In doing so, they felt like they kind of owed you one.
Mm.
because you'd gone to the effort to make the room smell good. Maybe it smelled like vanilla or like cookies, or it reeked of coffee. And then at their placemat, it not only had their name card, but something to touch and something to taste and something to drink. And there was some little thing to play with, or some little quote on a card, something that was thematically related to what you were about to say. And then there would be things up on the walls that were interesting to look at. And when they walked into the room, there was music playing, and you rehearsed the crap out of it so that it wasn't just you were presenting an idea, it was a show. And
Mm.
from all of this, they go, these people really put a lot of effort into this. And there's a rule that you would know, which is everybody assumes how you do anything is how you do everything. That's why we dress nice on a date or smell
Mhm.
good.
We
We
hope so.
prepared it. And so what I learned and what we practiced was the art of trying to charm the client sufficiently to make them want to buy the idea. Now, if you don't mind, I'll just take a quick step to the side to say it's kind of interesting because we're talking about storytelling. It's those actions that tell the story. The preparation is a way of the story I'm telling is I respect your time. I want you to enjoy yourself. I like you. I wouldn't go to this trouble if I didn't like you. I wouldn't go to this trouble if I didn't think the idea was worthy of this trouble. You know, it's not like I'm going to build a fine restaurant and then serve you terrible food. No,
Mm.
no, no. I've made the restaurant fine to match the quality of the food. And I'll give you an example of the sort of thing we would do that no one else would do. And it told a story. After the meetings, come hell or high water, no matter what the verdict, if they turned down the idea, we would send them a thank you letter in the
Mm.
mail, a
Mhm.
really cool, decorated, handwritten note that said, well, Ron, you didn't buy the idea, but thank you for your time. And it always helps to hear such frank feedback, that kind of thing. That tells a story. The story is we're the types of people who do that.
Right.
And every time you do a meeting, remember, it's not a single hammer blow rarely breaks the stone. Every meeting that necessarily doesn't produce a win, nevertheless cracks the rock a little bit until finally they trust you. And that to me was the brilliant thing about experiential marketing was when you meet someone face to face, it's very reassuring if they're a cheerful, upbeat, positive person who seems to like you first. And with that, you feel like, oh, there's a human being on the other side of this transaction.
Mm.
And given a choice, I'd rather interact with a human being than, an email.
Right. Or a process. Right. So many people codify experience as process. And this maps to the psychological analysis and the sociological analysis of things like likability. People are nervous when they walk into a room whether or not you will like them. And the indicator of whether or not you will be liked is whether or not you show that you like them first. And so just by setting the table that way, you're setting a situation up where the person already knows they're liked. And as a result, they have a greater tendency to like you.
Yeah,
But it starts with
reciprocity.
showing that you like them first.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. The other is there's new neurological data that shows that how we learn is not, I'm an auditory listener, I'm a verbal, I'm an experiential learner. So that piece, right, of the neurological data shows us that we're not just learners in one solid sense. We are not just an auditory learner. We are not just an experiential learner, but rather our senses want to be tingled on all fronts. And that the greatest opportunity for memory and retention actually comes by stimulating lots of different
Yeah.
learning centers of the brain simultaneously. So some people might get overwhelmed by that, but most of us want to touch something, want to smell something, want to taste something. And so I'm always the person who's bringing gummy worms or something like that to the meeting with the same feeling that you do. I also want to keep the sugar levels very high so that people continue to pay attention. So that's my own glycemic issue, but it's
Yeah,
fine.
you gotta time it.
Yeah.
You gotta give them chocolate covered espresso beans at the
So
beginning of the
yeah,
meeting.
well, you also need them to focus. So, the other part of that is part of being a good storyteller, and especially for the executives that we work with, is so many of them, so many leaders are afraid to show their authentic selves and express vulnerability in the process of telling the story around their innovation, their breakthrough, their failure, etc.
Yeah.
And it's a challenge because we've always been told that vulnerability is not strength. Brene Brown has tried to teach us otherwise. But talk to us a little bit about authenticity. And you've been so authentic in the stories that you share online. Tell us how authenticity works for the storyteller and how you teach that, or how you lead people to discover their authenticity.
I've got quite a few things we could touch on for this. First, the likelihood that someone will believe you or identify with you or think of you as admirable is very much related to how much bragging you do about yourself. You should
Ooh.
never make yourself the hero of your own stories
Mm-hmm.
because it is not believable. It's very much like somebody describing the size of the fish they caught. You know, the bigger their description, the less likely they are to be a trustworthy person. It is
Mm.
in almost all of my stories, I would not cast myself as the hero. The purpose of the story is to express my admiration for somebody else, or through some failure of mine, demonstrate something I've learned. And not only that, but also what are the inspirations of certain things and what might I not live up to? There is to it, authenticity and vulnerability are linked in that sense that I don't portray myself as heroic, because if I do, the way that is going to be interpreted is not how it's intended to be. Let's say, for example, that I tell you I'm wonderful and I describe all my accolades as the start of the meeting. Right away, somebody's thinking to themselves, boy, he really loves to toot his own horn. He's standing on top of a soapbox claiming to be humble, about being flange maker of the year. And he's got a bullhorn in his hand and he's announcing his greatness. So automatically, everybody goes, I really wish in the course of this meeting, you are humiliated in some way to take you
Ooh.
down a notch. The second
Wow.
thing is, again, they just have no credibility. They've lost all their credibility because people go, no matter what claim he makes in this meeting now, I can tell whatever his motives are, generally self-interested. If he's here to sell us something, he can forget it because I don't want to contribute to his monthly, you know, achievements and bonus. As far as I'm concerned, I'd like to light him on fire. But by contrast, let's look at somebody who says, they're standing in front of a table. They're the leader. They don't want to be interpreted as weak. I understand that. Paradoxically, very, very strong people don't need to talk about how strong they are. They welcome other people's input because they have such a stable ego that they would love to grant other people credit for ideas. They love to talk about how it was Barbara's idea. I blatantly stole it and am proud to and all of a sudden, in giving out credit to other people, in sharing the accolades, paradoxically, it increases the amount of credit you get for it.
Mm.
Because everybody realizes in our species how helpful it is when a leader is generous and fair. We give them more power because we can trust them, because you can turn your back on them and they won't steal your idea and present it as their own. Who but someone who's very insecure would do such a thing? So this is the paradox of authenticity and generosity and kindness to other people, is you'll actually get more credit when you are willing to deal out credit, when you are willing to share accolades. I used to have a boss, wonderfully good storyteller. He would begin most meetings by explaining why everybody was at the table. And I don't mean we're all here too. I mean this way. I've invited Barbara because Barbara is a specialist in this and she can contribute that. John, I just wanted you to observe today because I think you might want to hear this idea. He would explain everybody's sort of role and task there. And in doing so, he did two things. He acknowledged everybody's place. He gave them the impression you are respected to be at this table. I respect you for the various reasons that I've just articulated. And therefore, everybody feels like they're welcome. They've got a role. And the leader has taken the time to pay attention to who they are. I'm not burning your time because I want to feel important. I've invited you here for a reason. That's a story. Just explaining what everybody's doing there is a story. Every moment that we're in a business meeting or we're on a phone call or we're in a pitch, the whole thing, you are telling a story. And I don't think people fully appreciate, they think that storytelling is, I want to master the art of telling this joke in this meeting, or I want to seem credible as I give this speech. Brothers and sisters, you're not seeing that a story is something you occupy. It's something you portray. That you yourself are a character, the main character in your own story. And you are a character and if you have somebody whose decision you need to have made, they need to make a decision, they need to agree to something, or they need to approve something, or they need to listen and intake a certain amount of information. You're not the main character in their life. Therefore, you have to be a supporting player in their story. Okay, now I realize if I'm a supporting actor in their story, how can I absolutely maximize my usefulness to them? How do I portray myself so that they see themselves in the buying of the idea that I'm there to present, or in the acceptance of the data that I'm there to present? Their story gets augmented. They've triumphed that day. And so forgive me, Susan, because this is my favorite topic. I'll tend to go off on these tangents, but I just want to leave with this one thing, which is from the moment you know that you have a meeting until the time that they have received their thank you note, that meeting is going. It's the whole thing is the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think enough people appreciate the fact that the meeting isn't over just because you've said goodbye. You need to leave a lingering fragrance in their life so that they look forward to you reappearing on the horizon.
Yeah, I keep thinking of Elle Woods spraying her resume with perfume as she leaves it back. It's scented.
That's good. That's what I'm talking about. She's taking advantage of, she's gone one extra step that other people don't go. And in doing so, completely set herself apart from. Yeah.
But this thing about authenticity, I think vibrationally, we found that it is more impactful than love, even. The ability to be wholly oneself in a room full of other people and to naturally attract or repel those people through one's authenticity, right? That you really truly become yourself. It's not to say that you're not observant of the other people and your impact on others, but just thinking about setting these executives up for success when they are going to begin storytelling is the ability to keep peeling away layers, right? That we get to who we are in order to tell a more authentic story as well. And I think it also gives the listener permission to authentically respond to your story, not just a bunch of placating faces around the table going, sounds great, boss.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We're great mimics as a species. I mean, you just watch the way that an infant who can barely see is already mimicking the facial expressions of their mother.
Right.
And, the mothers are always trying to get them to say mama or I love you. And it really is amazing how quickly they'll pick it up because that's our species. Monkey see, monkey do. A leader, by being authentically themselves, grants permission and teaches other people to be their authentic selves. And with authenticity comes trust and believability. There's going to be a moment in every CEO's career when they really desperately need to be believed right now. And the problem is that most CEOs walk a tightrope every day of not being able to share all of the inside data for a variety of reasons, and yet seeming to be believable as they work through their day. I don't think CEOs fully appreciate that sort of equipoise that they need to have. Equipoise, I love as a word, which if you think of it like a downhill skier needs to be completely focused and completely, they need to have their muscles tuned to the task of rocketing down this hill. But in that same moment, they need to be sufficiently relaxed so that their legs can absorb whatever, come what may, that they cannot predict. This is equipoise, completely focused and completely relaxed. That's the CEO. They have to be completely focused on the targets and the tasks in supporting everybody else, but at the same time, they need to broadcast believability, authenticity, and just be a regular human. There's a movie that I recommend every CEO watch. It's Russell Crowe in Master and Commander on the Far Side of the Earth, because he is a really good example of you cannot be a ship's captain in the Royal Navy without being a hard ass. You have to enforce discipline on that ship. Your word is law on that vessel. It has to be. You have the souls of the crew in your hands.
That's true.
But at the very same time, those men must love you because they have to be willing to die on your command. They have to be willing to face death for you. So this is a CEO's dilemma. Can I be enough of a disciplinarian to demand difficult things? But can I create such an air of empathy and understanding and compassion from myself to them that they life gets easier when people like you, right? So in the doing of that, you can't fake your way to that. People have really good sniffers. They know when you're being fake. And
So I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can we apply this in this moment? Because I am seeing so much inauthenticity trying to tell the AI story to employees right now.
Yeah.
Because that is an absolute nightmare in terms of what is the spoken agenda, what's the hidden agenda, what's the 3 to 5 year plan, right? So talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing on the AI front when it comes to storytelling.
So I'll give you two versions of that. The first is the AI, and then I also want to talk about return to office, which suffers from much the same problem.
Okay.
It's always badly explained about what the motives are. So in the case of AI, most people are deeply suspicious that the reason for the heavy adoption in their office of AI is because they intend to shred headcount. And 90% of the time, they're not wrong. The whole reason for adopting and integrating AI is so they can reduce the number of people in the company. You can imagine how enticing it is to someone in a publicly traded company for a CEO to announce in an earnings call, I just fired half the people in this company and we're still got our doors open. Isn't that wonderful?
Isn't that amazing?
Okay. That's one.
Jack Dorsey at Twitter, he just did that at his new company Block, right? I just wrote a blog post about it last week.
There you go.
Laid off 40% of the company and stock price went up 25%.
Right. Oh, God bless him. At least he did good severances. But yeah, the motive was I'm gonna just absolutely hack off a couple of limbs. Now, let's look at a contrasting version of that. IKEA, in their customer service telephone centers, just like everybody else, discovers that with the use of automated systems, they can accomplish about 60% of the job before they need human beings, which means that on paper, they can just hack these people off and thank you, here's your 2-week severance, goodbye. Aren't we earning a lot of money? But they didn't do that. What they did was they said, you know what? We're no longer need these people to do this level of work in order to satisfy the customer. At some point, customers do need to talk to a human being, so they maintain 40% of those people. But in the meantime, what do they do with the other 60%? Well, it turns out that those people manning those phones, you know what they're really, really good at? They know the catalog. They really know the catalog. They know everything IKEA makes. So what does IKEA do? They decide, hey, what if we use those people who really know the catalog and we give them some coaching in design, in interior design, so that they can upsell people into additional or complementary pieces instead of just buying this. Let's offer it as a service. And you tell me, how do you think they did?
How did they do?
It was $1.4 billion
Wow.
in additional revenue
Uh-huh.
that they didn't get before. Okay, now that to me is exactly what AI should be for, which is I'm going to take some of these tasks which use your time in an inefficient or non-creative way. And instead of cutting you loose, I'm going to capitalize on what you've learned so that your institutional knowledge becomes a new profit center. Now, everybody at IKEA, having heard this story, goes, the story that management told is do not fear when they show up with AI. There is probably some new horizon of revenue you can generate from this in your department. All of a sudden, all the middle managers, all of the junior people start thinking, how might we use this?
Mm.
Now you've got the entire company thinking that way. So AI, the story is often badly told because the people that are using it, do you ever heard that wonderful, oh geez, I can't remember the name of the stand-up comedian. He's one of the greats. Well, anyway, he has this joke he says, the whole thing behind a flamethrower is that somebody said, gee, I'd like to light those people over there on fire. They're too far away. And in that, it's the impulse to take any wonderful new invention and immediately use it as either a weapon or a way to cheat. And cheating is, I'm going to hack off a limb in order to make weight. And as opposed to, this is a brand new tool. It's called fire. What are all of the ways we can do this? We can use this. And there's
I have to ask a question now. Is this is a very masculine approach, I think, to how things get invented and then repurposed in a different way.
Oh, yeah. Men immediately take any technology and 10 minutes later, it's a weapon.
I mean, it's like it's watching a nursery school full of boys do that. It's just like, oh, look, someone gave me a flute. And then 5 minutes later, someone's hitting their neighbor over the head. It's a gun
or it's a club now.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I'm like, I don't think I'm wired this way to immediately want to kill the person next to me with the thing I just invented.
Yeah.
But I will say this AI story, though, is so critical because when you listen to Jensen Huang speak, right, from NVIDIA, the things that he's saying are so encouraging. And again, we'll have to determine, in 2 years' time, whether he was being authentic with the things that he said. But he said, we're hiring more. Anybody who can use these tools to do what they already do better, we want to hire more of them.
Yeah, I mean, his math actually does work because if he says, if I can take a single employee and I can get 1.5 productivity out of them versus the old 1.0, why would I not go on a hiring spree? Because now I can scale this thing. I mean, his math makes sense. The other math is 10-minute math. I've got an earnings call in 10 minutes. How can I shave 40% off it's that quarterly earnings cycle. And I get it because the CEO's time is largely spent on financial matters. They're always trying to make their numbers, or they're, trying to be impressive to board members. I get it. Those are the pressures they're under. But it isn't taking advantage of what the technology can do. I mean, it's a little bit like I've just invented powered flight. And instead of thinking of all of the possible ways we could use it, the first thing they think of is, oh, so I can use it to feed horses better. I mean, they're still thinking in the old mindset. But I want to go to a different scenario, which is before I was talking about AI, and now I'd like to talk about return to office. It's the same syndrome, which is depending on how you tell the story, entirely changes the likability that people have for the idea and their likelihood of participating in that new horizon. So, for example, and I've heard it done both ways. There's the because I said so, and there are various versions of that. The first version is we're going to need everybody to come in 5 days a week now. That's the policy. If you don't like it, you can hit the highway. And then the slightly more sophisticated version of that is we're moving you to the Oklahoma City office. And it's entirely up to you if you want to go or stay. But if you stay, you're fired. Yeah. Or they'll come up with some completely distasteful place to move. They're just trying to shed people that won't participate in return to office. It's this mindset that's entirely self-absorbed and it doesn't see the future. I heard another description of that from a guy who he was a tech guy and he was an older guy. So he was at the stage in his life where he liked to mentor people. That was where he got his enjoyment. And he had so much institutional knowledge that he frequently had some young 22-year-old knocking on his door because somebody sent him to him saying, ask him about this. Okay. So what he said was, he goes, in a town hall, he said, I would like to encourage my division, my IT guys. I would like to encourage you to come back to the office. At your discretion, you choose the number of days, but let me give you the reason I think it's useful to you. When I grew up in this business, everybody came into the office and nobody ever explained this to you, but you always got the benefit of a mentor. There was some old cat about 5 years about ready to walk out the door who thought, why should I let all of this stuff that I've learned go to waste? Let me take you under my wing and let me give you some of the benefit of this. It's a natural human instinct with older people. They want to help you. They do. You will often find mentors and proteges all over the building. It's not always, sometimes it's counterintuitive. Sometimes the finance guy takes a liking to some creative. That happened to me, and so on. And what he said to his department was, he goes, look, I think you'll find that you can learn twice as fast at your job and become twice as valuable in that time by coming into the office and having the opportunity to sit with people in unofficial meetings or go out to lunch with people who've been doing it for 20 years. Don't you think it would make sense for you as a 25-year-old who's just starting out to be able to get a tutorial 3 days a week, an hour of free time from a guy that you would have to pay $1,000 an hour for that? I'm just throwing it out there. Well, all the careerists go, don't have to ask me twice. I want in on that. And that's a story. But I do have to say that the story is told that way because of the orientation of the teller. They don't do this through careful evil planning. They do it because that's who they really are. That's the authentic self.
Right.
And so some CEOs are quite gifted at being generous and fair and looking out for the long-term interests of their company. And then others, they really don't care. They really don't care about you or even any vice president in that room. And, they look at storytelling as just like anything else, like a flamethrower. They're, how can I turn this into a weapon?
Yeah. Well, this conversation is amazing, and I would want to have like 3 more of them. Neal.
Count me in.
There's a question that I ask everyone who comes on the show, and that is, what is the story that you think the world needs now?
Yeah, it is that you get so much farther and go faster when you are kind to people. And you have to make the first move. You can't wait for people to be kind to you to be the one who makes the first move. And the story that I always tell about this is you and I probably are both big dog lovers. I'm guessing you love dogs. Probably
I'm team cat.
I love cats too. We got 4 cats, 2 dogs.
There you go.
But the thing about dogs that is not true of cats is that dogs are, most people love them, but if you put all the objective traits of dogs, they do have quite a long list of drawbacks. You have to walk them all the time. You don't have to do that with cats. You have to pick up their poop. You have to, when they're young, they chew up everything and they pee everywhere. They'll shed on your clothes if you don't get a special breed. You're literally, before your business trips, you're taping your outfits. They cost a fortune at the vet. You have to board them if you travel, and God help you if they bite someone. And after you pour years of sacrifice into them, they die. And there is an excellent chance that that will be among the saddest days of your life. So my question to people is, why do people bother? Why do they love dogs so much? And the answer is because dogs love you first.
That's right.
They don't judge you. They're always happy to see you. And my favorite thing about them is they don't look at you and wonder if they could have done better. And this is how we as human beings can get further and faster, is if We're the first mover. We don't wait for someone to love us first. We go ahead and show our affection and our fairness and our belief in people. And yep, you're going to get burned here and there, but that is a small price to pay for cultivating in your life a vibration of authenticity and lovability and fairness. And any kind people tend to draw kind people to them.
Yes, it's true.
It's it's an electromagnetism that is real. They have a number for it in quantum mechanics. But that's the thing that I would say is what the world needs is a commitment to kindness. Now, by the way, at Anheuser-Busch, when I used to work on that business, you go to the St. Louis headquarters and there in very, very large brass letters, when you walk into the lobby, it says, making friends is our business. And I thought to myself, immediately upon seeing it, I go, that would be a great national motto. Like, I don't need e pluribus unum. I want the United States of America's motto to be making friends is our business. And then you go, oh, that's interesting.
Wouldn't that be nice? I think that's Bhutan's.
Is it really? Are they the ones that have like the National Happiness Register?
Index, yeah, they do. They don't have their gross domestic product. They have gross
Yeah,
domestic
yeah.
happiness. Yeah. Well,
But
tell us, Neal, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
I'm pretty easy to find if you just spell my name right. So Nealfoard. And they can find me at
Storyfire.
www.storyfire.net. I couldn't get the .com. And so now, I have to suffer that. But if you look me up and find Storyfire, usually the link will take you to the website. But if people just spell my name right, usually they'll find me on Instagram and TikTok and Blue Sky and Substack and YouTube. And
All
I'm
of the
pretty easy.
above. Yeah. Fantastic. Neal, thank you so much for joining me on the show today in our special storyteller series on Innovation Storytellers. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. And if you want to repeat it and do another, I'm game.
Awesome. Thanks.